Husker fans, Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. This is our post-4th of July recruiting update for Nebraska's offense. Well, a lot of people know what Nebraska's been doing in the recruiting department, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. The Huskers rank, between 15 and 18 in the major recruiting services. And on the offensive side of the ball, they've pretty much filled it all the way out except for maybe one position. Offensive tackle, we'll get to that here at the end. But here's what they were able to do over the last 50 days. They got their quarterback, Danny Kalen. They got their running back, McKewon Lacey. They got receivers, Quinn Clark, Isaiah McMorris, Devon Hall. Good players. I would put Keelan Smith in there too. Keelan was, he committed in early May, but I think he's going to probably end up being a receiver. Some people have him as a tight end, but all of his highlights look like he's going to be a receiver, I think. We'll see what happens there. It's always possible. At that tight end spot, obviously, they got Carter Nelson. That was a huge get for them. And then in the interior line spots, they already had Gibson Pyle. They added Jake Peters, and they also added Landon Davidson. Is this a pretty good group? I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think at a lot of times with Nebraska offensive recruiting, they've gone after stars. They haven't necessarily landed those stars. They have one guy in this class that I would describe that way. That would be Ja'Cory Barney. He's the kid from Miami. I like his game. I kind of like him as a quarterback and not as a thrower, but he's very good running out of that spot, so it gives you a sense of what he's like after the catch. I think as a receiver, he's pretty fast. I think he's going to be a nice slot player for them. That's probably the one guy in the class that you would say, wow, that's an impressive get. Now, Carter Nelson is the highest rated player, but let's remember that Carter was from Ainsworth, and he was likely to go to Nebraska so long as Nebraska showed him on his official visit that it would be a good time, and I think they were able to show him that. So Nebraska did pretty good work on the offensive side of the ball. You have to tip your hat, obviously, to Matt Rule and to his staff on the offensive side of the ball. I feel like they got the quarterback that ultimately is the best fit for Nebraska. I think they've got a running back who's a downhill guy that likes contact. With running backs, you just never quite know until they're 2 or 3 years in. They got to stay healthy. They got to pick up the offense. You don't quite know until they get here, and then they kind of acclimate themselves, and you figure it out. I do like what Nebraska did with big-bodied guys. So Quinn Clark, 6'5", Keelan Smith, 6'3", Carter Nelson, 6'4". You're putting targets on the field wherever you line them up, whether that's in the slot or that's outside or that's a tight end. You're putting guys on the field that are particularly in the red zone. You've got big bodies out there who can make catches, whether it's it's a back line throw right to the goalpost, or it's a fade route, or it's getting large in a small space and having to out physical somebody for a play. There's a lot of things that you have to be able to do in red zone throwing, where it helps to have larger bodies, just taller guys, and I think Nebraska has that. I like the interior offensive lineman. I really like Jake Peters. I think he's got great tape. I think he's a little small, right, for a P5 lineman, but if you put him at center, he's probably just about right size. Remember, Cam Jurgens was 6'1", 290. Jake Peters probably is. He was listed at 6'3", 270. My hunch is he's about 6'2", and 265, but that puts him right in line with where Cam Jurgens was. I like where Nebraska's at. They still have to get an offensive tackle. Grant Bricks, Logan Magnolia, Iowa is one to watch. There's a couple other guys. There's a guy out in Hawaii that you're going to want to watch too. This is tough. It's tough to get offensive tackles. They're in high demand. There's a lot of schools recruiting for them, and a lot of times these guys make decisions that aren't necessarily attuned to what school should I go to or which star should I chase. Turner Corcoran picked Nebraska when Nebraska was struggling. Bryce Benhart did the exact same. You don't always quite know who's going to pick when and why and who and all those things. That's a little bit challenging with offensive tackles, but Nebraska's in the mix for a couple. We'll see what happens. They'll land somebody along the way. They certainly will. And remember that offensive tackles don't just develop right away once they get into the program either. Okay, that is our recruiting update for the offense. For post-4th of July, we'll be back next week. Thanks, Husker fans.